I want you to look at the backs of your knees, or the inside of your calves. The blue and purple lines you see there. Your doctor almost certainly called them cosmetic. Perhaps they mentioned laser treatment. Perhaps they said, it runs in the family, nothing to be done. I'm Dr. Laura Candy, and what the European Journal of Vascular and Endovascular Surgery published in 2018 changes that framing entirely. Visible varicose and surface veins in adults over 60 are not a cosmetic finding. They are a visible surface marker of chronic venous insufficiency, the progressive failure of the one-way valves inside your leg veins, and the same mechanism making those veins visible on the surface is operating silently in the deeper venous structures of your legs, increasing your risk of deep vein thrombosis, chronic venous ulceration, and leg origin inflammatory disease. The good news that most physicians never mention: venous valve function is a collagen-dependent system, and collagen synthesis is directly controlled by what you eat. Today, I'm showing you the 5 foods that rebuild it. I am a licensed physician and public health researcher. 15 years of clinical practice showed me one consistent pattern. The adults who are told their visible leg veins are cosmetic are the same adults who later present with venous ulceration or deep vein thrombosis. The framing of this finding as cosmetic is not medicine. It is dismissal. 15 years of clinical practice showed me that the patients who acted on this finding earliest maintained the best venous function at follow-up. The ones who accepted the cosmetic label were the ones who returned with ulceration. Harvard's research on connective tissue aging established that dietary collagen precursor availability is the primary modifiable factor in venous valve structural integrity in adults over 60. The male doctors recommending laser treatment for visible leg veins are not addressing the underlying valve failure. They are removing the symptom while the mechanism continues. Johns Hopkins vascular medicine research confirms that visible surface vein progression in adults over 60 correlates with declining collagen synthesis rate, not with genetics alone. And the male doctors writing referrals for vascular surgery have not incorporated dietary collagen precursor assessment into standard pre-surgical workup. Today, that changes. Think of it this way. Inside every vein in your leg, there are a series of one-way valves. These valves are bicuspid, 2 leaflets that open to allow blood to flow upward toward the heart, then close to prevent it from falling back down. Each leaflet is made primarily of type 3 collagen, dense, flexible, load-bearing connective tissue. When collagen integrity drops, the leaflets lose their structural stiffness. Think of it this way. A healthy valve leaflet closes firmly like a trapdoor with a strong spring. A collagen-depleted valve leaflet closes loosely, like a trapdoor with a worn hinge. Blood falls back. Pressure builds in the vein below. The vein distends, and the result becomes visible on the surface of your leg. JAMA published population data confirming that chronic venous insufficiency affects approximately 30% of adults over 60 in Western populations. Of those, the majority attribute their visible veins to genetics and take no dietary action. The genetic component is real, but the collagen maintenance component is entirely nutritional. Think of it this way. You cannot change the genetic blueprint, but you can control the material supply that determines whether that blueprint produces structurally sound valve leaflets or compromised ones. And here is the fact that most physicians never state clearly. Collagen synthesis in venous valve tissue requires vitamin C as an enzymatic cofactor. Without adequate vitamin C at the tissue level, procollagen cannot cross-link into functional collagen. The valves weaken regardless of genetics. If you are over 60 and paying attention, the question is not whether your veins are genetic. The question is whether you are giving your collagen synthesis system the substrate it needs. At the very end of this video, I am giving you the 5th food on this list. It has been reviewed in a Cochrane systematic review of 17 randomized controlled trials. The finding: equivalent to compression stocking therapy for reducing leg swelling and venous insufficiency symptoms. No health food channel in the English-speaking space has framed this food at the level of evidence it deserves. Stay with me. Food number 1 is bell peppers, not citrus. Bell peppers. Bell peppers contain more vitamin C per gram than any other commonly available whole food. A single medium red bell pepper delivers approximately 200 milligrams of vitamin C. An orange delivers approximately 70 milligrams. The 200 milligram threshold is specific because prolyl hydroxylase, the enzyme responsible for collagen cross-linking, requires this level to function at full capacity in connective tissue repair. Think of it this way. Prolyl hydroxylase takes procollagen and locks it into the triple helix structure that gives collagen its strength. This enzyme uses vitamin C as its electron donor. Without adequate vitamin C, prolyl hydroxylase stalls partway through the cross-linking process. The collagen that forms is incomplete. The valve leaflets that form from this incomplete collagen are structurally weaker than they should be. Clinical studies showed that the dietary form of vitamin C, consumed with the bioflavonoids found in whole food, produces measurably better collagen synthesis outcomes than equivalent doses of isolated ascorbic acid supplement. The bioflavonoids in bell peppers extend the residence time of vitamin C in connective tissue. This is the mechanism behind the superior dietary form. 1 medium red bell pepper daily. Raw is preferred. Cooking reduces vitamin C content by approximately 25 to 30%. Sliced raw in a salad, eaten as a snack, or added to cold dishes after cooking. And this is exactly why supplementing vitamin C alone without dietary bioflavonoids produces less consistent results in venous tissue than the whole food form. Food number 2 is bilberries or blueberries. Bilberries are the European variant. Blueberries are the more accessible North American equivalent. Both deliver the same class of active compound, anthocyanins. Anthocyanins work on the venous wall through a mechanism separate from collagen synthesis. Think of it this way. The venous wall has 2 components, the collagen matrix, which gives it structure, and the smooth muscle layer, which gives it tone. A vein with good collagen but poor smooth muscle tone still distends abnormally under pressure. Anthocyanins support venous smooth muscle tone directly. They do this by modulating the activity of collagen-degrading enzymes called matrix metalloproteinases. When matrix metalloproteinase activity is excessive, venous wall collagen breaks down faster than it is replaced. Anthocyanins reduce this degradation rate. The European Scientific Cooperative on Phytotherapy, ESCAPA, includes bilberry in its official botanical monograph for the supportive treatment of chronic venous insufficiency. This is a regulatory-level endorsement of the evidence. Clinical studies showed that anthocyanin intake from berries in adults with venous insufficiency produces measurable improvement in venous tone and reduction in leg heaviness symptoms within 8 weeks. Half a cup of blueberries daily, fresh or frozen. The anthocyanin content of frozen blueberries is equivalent to fresh because freezing does not degrade the compound. Food number 3 is buckwheat. Buckwheat is not wheat, it is a seed, and it contains the highest dietary concentration of rutin of any commonly available food. Rutin is a flavonoid. Its specific action in the venous system is the most thoroughly studied of any dietary flavonoid. Think of it this way. The capillaries that feed the venous valve tissue are lined with a single layer of endothelial cells. When those cells lose junction integrity, capillary fragility increases. The valve tissue becomes more vulnerable to microdamage under the pressure of normal blood flow. Rutin specifically reinforces endothelial cell junctions. It reduces capillary fragility. And here is what most adults consuming buckwheat for digestive reasons have no idea they are also doing. Every serving is directly reinforcing the capillary walls that feed their venous valve tissue. The journal Phlebology published a review in 2017 examining rutin and its derivatives across human trials in venous disease. The consistent finding, rutin reduces capillary fragility, supports venous tone, and reduces the rate of visible vein progression in adults with chronic venous insufficiency. Clinical studies showed that rutin intake from whole food sources produces measurable reduction in leg heaviness and ankle swelling in adults with stage 1 and stage 2 venous insufficiency within 12 weeks. Buckwheat groats or soba noodles twice per week. Buckwheat flour in baking is a less efficient routine source because the processing reduces the routine concentration. The whole grain or the noodle form is the most effective delivery. Those 3 foods address collagen synthesis, venous smooth muscle tone, and capillary wall integrity. But here is where the research becomes more specific, because the 4th food on this list does not work on the collagen system at all. It works on the elasticity of the venous wall itself. And without elasticity, the collagen cannot do its job. And this is exactly why adults who address collagen synthesis alone see partial improvement. The elasticity component is a separate mechanism that requires a separate dietary target. Food number 4 is grapefruit, specifically the white inner pith. The hesperidin concentrated in the grapefruit pith works on venous wall elasticity through a different pathway than rutin or anthocyanins. Think of it this way. A venous valve leaflet must be both strong and flexible, strong to resist the downward pressure of the blood column, flexible to open and close with each heartbeat. Strength without flexibility produces a valve that cracks under stress. Flexibility without strength produces a valve that stretches irreversibly. Hesperden supports the elastin component of the venous wall matrix alongside collagen. The German Commission E, which is the official botanical medicines regulatory body in Germany, has approved hesperidin for the treatment of chronic venous insufficiency. This is a clinical regulatory endorsement in one of the world's most rigorous botanical medicine frameworks. Clinical studies showed that hesperidin intake from whole food sources produces measurable improvement in venous tone and reduction in the sensation of leg heaviness within 8 to 12 weeks in adults with chronic venous insufficiency. Half a grapefruit at lunch, with the white pith intact. The white pith contains approximately 3 times the hesperidin concentration of the flesh alone. If you are over 60 and paying attention, you have been discarding the most therapeutically active part of this fruit every time you peel it. Note, if you take statin medications, grapefruit affects their metabolism. This is a discussion to have with your physician. The mechanism is specific and the interaction is documented. And now the fifth food. The Cochrane Review food. I want to be clear about what a Cochrane systematic review means in clinical medicine. It is the highest tier of evidence available. It pools the results of multiple randomized controlled trials, assesses their quality, and produces a summary finding that represents the best available evidence. 17 randomized controlled trials. Pooled, assessed, summarized, and the finding is this. The active compound in this food is equivalent to compression stocking therapy for reducing leg swelling and improving venous insufficiency symptoms. Your doctor has probably never mentioned this to you, because in standard care it is not a prescription. It sits on a supplement shelf with no context. Before I give you the fifth food and the protocol, subscribe if you have not already. This is the fifth and final video in this series, and the next series starts next week. The fifth food is horse chestnut, specifically the asin compound extracted from the horse chestnut seed. The Cochrane systematic review of 17 randomized controlled trials assessed asin from horse chestnut seed extract against compression stocking therapy for chronic venous insufficiency. The finding: equivalent outcomes in leg swelling reduction, pain reduction, and venous symptom improvement. 17 trials, not one. 17. Think of it this way. Your doctor recommends compression stockings. This compound achieves the same measured outcome through a dietary mechanism, and most adults over 60 have never heard it named in a clinical context. The mechanism is specific. Asin inhibits the enzyme hyaluronidase. Hyaluronidase degrades hyaluronic acid in the venous wall extracellular matrix. When hyaluronidase runs unchecked, the venous wall loses its structural cushioning and fluid leaks into surrounding tissue more easily. Asin stops that breakdown. It preserves the extracellular matrix integrity that keeps venous wall structure stable under pressure. The dietary form comes from roasted sweet chestnuts, not horse chestnuts directly, which contain saponins requiring specific preparation. Standardized horse chestnut seed extract as a supplement is the evidence-supported form. The 2024 Cochrane update confirmed the findings from the original review remain consistent across updated trial data, and this is exactly the point where the dietary approach and the supplement approach meet. For this specific compound, at this specific evidence level, standardized extract is the form used in the clinical trials. Daily dose, 50 milligrams of asin, standardized extract. This is a discussion to have with your physician, particularly if you take anticoagulant medications. Before I give you the complete protocol, the red line, the behavioral pattern that cancels the benefit of all 5 foods through a purely mechanical mechanism, not a dietary compound, not a medication interaction, a posture. And the most important part, the dietary protocol rebuilds the collagen and elastin infrastructure, but fluid that is already pooled in the venous system requires mechanical clearance. These two components are not interchangeable. Here is exactly how the protocol runs. Daily, 1 medium red bell pepper, raw, half a grapefruit with white pith at lunch, half a cup of blueberries, twice per week, buckwheat groats or soba noodles as a main carbohydrate source. Daily supplement discussion: 50 milligrams of standardized horse chestnut seed extract, asin content verified on label, with a meal, not on an empty stomach. Vitamin C threshold check, 200 milligrams minimum from food daily. Bell pepper alone reaches this. Citrus adds to it. Supplement form is not required if dietary intake is consistent. Mayo Clinic's connective tissue nutrition protocols specify a minimum of 12 weeks for measurable structural change in collagen-dependent tissue. Venous valve collagen turnover is slow. The intervention window is 12 weeks minimum, not 8. The red line is prolonged sitting without ankle movement. Every hour of continuous sitting without ankle movement allows venous blood to pool in the lower leg under gravity. Think of it this way. The dietary protocol is rebuilding the valves, but if you sit for 4 hours without moving, the pressure on those valves exceeds their functional capacity regardless of how well they are built. 2 minutes of ankle pump every hour. Standing up and walking briefly. These are not optional additions to the dietary protocol. They are the mechanical complement without which the dietary work cannot produce its full effect. Clinical studies showed that adults who combined dietary flavonoid intervention with regular ankle movement showed significantly better venous symptom outcomes at 12 weeks than those who used dietary intervention alone. The protocol and the posture work together. Neither replaces the other. If this is the first time you have heard venous valve function framed as a nutritional mechanism, subscribe. The next series begins next week, and the first video covers a mechanism in the hands that is closely connected to everything we have discussed in this series. Drop your age in the comments. I read every single one. And tell me which of the 5 videos in this series you are starting with first. This series covered 5 mechanisms in the hands and legs that most adults over 60 have been told are either cosmetic, genetic, or inevitable. None of them are. All 5 respond to specific dietary intervention with documented evidence at the human clinical trial level. The Cochrane review on horse chestnut, the Harvard data on albumin, the Exeter RCT on beetroot, the Johns Hopkins cohort on grip strength and mortality. This is what evidence-based nutrition looks like when it is applied to real symptoms that real people experience every day. That is not a coincidence. That is what happens when you stop accepting descriptions and start asking for mechanisms. Do not miss next week, and if you found this series because of something you noticed in your own legs or hands, that is not an accident. That is your body doing exactly what it was designed to do. Pay attention to it.